Good evening. It is October 9th, 2017, 7 p.m., and this is the Speedway Town Council meeting. I'm Gary Rakes, President of the Speedway Town Council, and I'd like to introduce those members and parties that are here at the head table this evening as we start our meeting. To my far right is Councilor Eileen Fisher.
Good evening.
To my immediate right is Vice President Council Jeff Matthews.
Good evening.
To my left is David Lindsay, also a Town Councilor.
Good evening.
And Jacob Blaisdell, our Town Manager.
Good evening.
Monty Coombs, our Clerk Treasurer.
Good evening.
And Bob Clutter, who's our Legal Counsel.
Good evening.
Chief Fishburne, if you would come forward and lead us in the pledge, we'd appreciate it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. First few items on the agenda are regarding minutes from previous meetings. First one is approval of the Town Council meeting from September 25th. These have been distributed. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll approve those or accept those as distributed. Next item is approval of a memorandum of the September 25th executive session of the Town Council. Any changes or comments on those? We'll accept those as well. I'm going to add a 3.5 item on the agenda. It's October 5th executive session of the Town Council. We distributed those as well. Any comments or questions? Good. We'll accept those as distributed also. Item 4, Ordinance 1296, approval of the 2018 budget for the Civil Town of Speedway. This will be on first reading. We'll have a number of steps this evening leading into approvals of a few budgets. So just ask everyone to kind of bear with our process. Ask the council to remind me to start public hearings on these and conclude public hearing times on these as well. So Jacob, if you want to give us a description, please.
Yes, we don't open it first? Okay, all right. So this is the budget for the Civil Town of Speedway. There are a couple of changes that we've had or adjustments since we had the initial public hearings with the department heads. I think first and foremost, maybe from a higher level, this budget does leave the town in what our consultants would tell us is a healthy position for the community to be in from a cash perspective. Which is a little bit different. As a council knows from my background, I've done a lot of budgets at the state level. I've done a lot of budgets in the private sector, but I've not done a budget at the municipal level, and it's a little bit different. And got some pointers from the previous town manager as well. But it's a slightly different process. You look a little more at cash balances. There's a process, of course, with approving this with the state as well. So. Interesting, but I think we've come to a healthy budget that puts the town in a good position fiscally. I would mention a few changes. We've increased the budget for the parks. We've added $50,000 to that budget. We've got a number of ash trees that are dying, and they're dying faster than we can keep up with the current appropriations. So we've increased that. The police department had requested body cameras in their budget. We have removed those from the budget, but we have maintained the radios as requested for both the police department and the fire department. And this budget does not contemplate any employees added.
Great. Okay. Well, if we could have a motion, and then we'll move forward with discussion and then a public hearing as well.
Mr. President, I move that we approve Ordinance 1296 on first reading.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the 2018 budget, Ordinance 1296. I'm going to go ahead and say it's 7:04 and call the public hearing of this item on the agenda to order. Is there anyone from the public that would like to make comments on our budget? First reading of the budget? Okay. We will, like the other items, we'll do the same thing, but we'll go ahead and conclude the public hearing portion of this discussion on Ordinance 1296 and the public comment for this ordinance at 7:05. Do you have any more comments you might like to make, Jacob? Or Any questions? Council?
Just the process here, mentioning this item has been duly noticed for public hearing. Now therefore be ordained resolved by the Speedway Town Council that for the expenses of Speedway Civil Town for the year ending December 31st, 2018, the sums herein specified are hereby appropriated and ordered set apart out of the several funds herein named and for the purposes herein specified, subject to the laws governing the same.
Great. Any comments, questions?
The body cameras, I know we've spoke with the chief. I think the public should know the reason those were removed was the cost of the storage. It's not the camera itself. It's the storage that is the big funding for that, so that's why those were removed. The radios, we're still in conversation with the city about those. It's also on the fire side as well. The radios that we have, the police department, fire department have, are going to be non-working at the end of 2018, and the town is required for that funding to pay for that, where in years past we haven't, so that's why the increase in that. I think the public should know that as well.
Yeah, I'd elaborate on that. Thanks for sharing that, Dave. The City County Council and the previous mayor, not the current mayor, approved the abolishment of MECA, and when that happened, 911 and some other fees that we receive for operating our own dispatch, as well as the radios that Dave described, are no longer covered by the city. We don't necessarily agree with that. We think that as an excluded town, as part of Unigov, we think that those should be covered, but they're not. So we think it's vitally important to support our police and fire departments, both with the equipment they need as well as communication tools and other personnel that makes their jobs safer and more well performed. So, any other comments on the budget? Any other items?
If I could make one more comment, since this is the town budget, I'd like to thank Monty and Jacob for the work on this, the department heads for our fun meetings that we've had to discuss budget. We started this several months ago, so it's not just a one-night thing. It's been going on for several months, and appreciate Monty and Jacob's help and department heads on it.
Yeah. I would add, the other comments would be that this is first reading, so we'll have our next council meeting, the public will have an opportunity to come and talk to us between now and then, as well as make public comments at that next meeting when we hear it for a second time and approve a budget at that point. But I would say that I'm really in favor of the budget because we're putting monies in a rainy day, we're putting monies aside, and we think we'll have a good good level of capital to operate for when times get tougher. And we saw this 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago when the economy went south. We had the opportunity to withstand those really tough times, unprecedented times, other than the Great Recession or Great Depression, the Great Recession. We were able to withstand that, and I think taking the measures we are now will allow us to do that when times turn, and they always do. So, hearing no more comments or questions, go ahead and ask for the call for the vote. All those in favor of approving on first reading ordinance 1296, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This carries 4-0. Actually, I'm going to pause for a second. I should have done this a little bit earlier. We didn't really make an introduction of Bob other than to say his name. Jacob, would you like to do that? I should have done that early on.
Yeah, sure. No, I didn't know where to sneak it in either. This guy just showed up. I
like his haircut.
Brought him
I'll
off
say that.
the streets. Bob has been helping us for about the last month, maybe a couple of months, with some kind of the day-to-day stuff of getting ordinances drafted, to HR issues and everything in between, contract review, that sort of thing. So we have enjoyed working with Bob, and he comes from the law firm of Taylor, Chad, Minette, Schneider, and Clutter. I had that written down. I didn't have that memorized. I still.
Neither do I.
That last name's good though, and that law firm's name. So he's been really helpful. Appreciate him. His plan is to attend the meetings regularly. At the very least, the first meeting of every month. And we're happy to have him. He's been a help to myself and Tim Gropp and SRC.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've moved from 4 to 5 and then back to 4 to get it approved. And we're now up to ordinance 1297, approval of the 2018 budget for the school town of Speedway. Again, first reading. I don't see anyone from the schools here. So Jacob, would you go ahead and introduce? Do we have that piece here in our packet? I'm just looking in our packet. Actually, we need a
Didn't open it
motion
up
before we
for-
can do that. I'm sorry.
Mr. President, I make a motion, we accept ordinance 1297 on first reading.
Second.
So we have a motion to approve the school city corporation budget, which is the school, for the school town of Speedway, ordinance 1297. Do you want to read that description, or would you rather I go to public hearing
I think you
first?
should open it up to public hearing,
All right,
your comments, and then once we close for public hearing, we can read the ordinance.
that's what I'll do.
All right.
So with that,
Wait a second. Counselor, does that work for you? All right. See, we
Yeah.
Perfectly acceptable.
great. So with that, I'll go ahead at 7:11 and call the public hearing portion of ordinance 1297 to order. This is for the school town of Speedway's budget first reading. Are there any comments or questions or anything from the public? Okay. Hearing none, it's magically 7:12, and we'll call the public hearing for that closed. And now, Jacob, if you want to
Right.
read the description of the ordinance, and then we'll have any discussion.
Yes, Mr. President, it has been duly noticed for public hearing. Now, therefore, be it ordained by the Speedway Town Council that for the expenses of Speedway City School Corporation for the year ending December 31st, 2018, the sums herein specified are hereby appropriated and ordered set apart out of the several funds herein named and for the purposes in herein specified, subject to the laws governing the same.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions from the council?
I'd just like to mention, I mentioned the department heads coming in. Superintendent Hall came in and gave a very detailed description of their budget, a lot of detail about monies and where they're spending them and their tax levy and all that. And that was in September, I believe it was? August. So it's not just a piece of paper. We had a very good presentation by the superintendent on this, and it was very well put together.
I'd add some comments to that. Dave's absolutely correct. In addition to that, schools continue to operate with just the most minimal amount of debt possible. The only debt that they have is debt that they have to take, evidently, related to books that students don't pay for, that they can't actually take out of their general fund, so they have to actually take a brief note for that, or small note for that. It's hundreds, sometimes just thousands of dollars, but anyway, the schools do a terrific job of operating, and I thank them for that. So,
As well as putting money back in the rainy day fund as well.
absolutely, absolutely. So, more comments or questions? I'll call for the vote on the first reading of the School Town of Speedway's 2018 budget. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carried 4-0. Okay, ordinance 1298, approval of the 2018 budget for the Speedway Public Library. See members of the library board and director of the library is here, head librarian. Jacob, do you have any comments before we?
No.
Okay. The library board didn't ask to speak. I'll certainly give them the opportunity. They're shaking their heads. I'm not sure what, I think that's a no. Usually in normal librarian fashion, they're quiet. So I'll go ahead and open the public hearing at 7:14 for the library budget. That's actually,
Mr. President,
I beg your pardon. I'm not going to open that just yet. I'm going to ask for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that we approve ordinance 1298, which is the Public Library Board first reading.
Second.
Okay, we now have the motion that I was looking for, and I'll go ahead and call the public hearing on that to order at 7:15. Are there any comments or questions regarding the the public library's budget for 2018? I'm not sure the folks at home can see all these faces in the crowd, but nobody's shaking their heads yes or no or anything. They're just staring at us. So, but there's a good number here tonight. There's probably 20 people, so we thank you for your attendance. And with that little bit of stalling, I've made it to 7:16, and we'll call the public hearing closed on the public library budget. So, Jacob.
Yes, Mr. President, this item has been duly noticed for public hearing. Now, therefore, be it ordained by the Speedway Public Library Board of Directors that for the expenses of Speedway City Public Library for the year ending December 31st, 2018, the sums herein specified are hereby appropriated and ordered, set apart out of the several funds herein named, and for the purposes herein specified, subject to the laws governing the same.
Thank you for that. And just for the record, our previous town manager, he could do that without looking at the paper.
I watched the video.
That was the second year. The second year.
I don't think that's not quite true, but
No comment.
I'm going to call.
Okay, so any other comments or questions from our council?
I believe that was on second reading he did that, so.
Okay.
Next meeting.
Yeah, got 2 weeks to memorize
Yeah,
it.
a couple more weeks.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Any comments? In all seriousness, truly appreciate the library and what they do. They're adapting and adjusting with the times. There's more electronic media. There's more ways that our citizens and the general public can utilize those facilities and just have the opportunity to learn or just stay connected. And so we thank them for their efforts. They do it on a fairly tight budget, and they don't ask for a lot of increase from year to year, so we appreciate that. Any other comments? Okay, I'll go ahead and call for the vote on Ordinance 1298, the Speedway Public Library's 2018 budget. All those in favor of approving first reading, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 1298 carries first reading 4-0. And now to the Public Transportation Ordinance number 1299. Is anyone here from Public Transportation? I don't see anyone, so yes, please.
I was going to make a motion.
Oh,
for you, Mr.
please do.
President. Move us right
Please do.
along.
Please do.
Mr. President, I make a motion, we accept ordinance 1299 on first reading this evening.
Second.
Great. So we have a motion for ordinance 1299, and go ahead and call the public hearing on that to order at 7:17, and just ask if anyone in the public would like to talk about transportation. Now would be a good time. Okay. So I'll go ahead and call it closed. It's now 7:18, and we'll move to questions and comments from the council. The only thing I would say about public transportation is most citizens don't know that it exists or what it's for, and we have a number of people that have been, a few people have been serving for literally a couple of decades on this commission. So they see to it that we work with Indigo to get buses moving through our town, in and out of downtown and out to further to the northwest part of the county, and they help negotiate contracts and the details of that. So thank you to them for their service. And with no further comments or questions, I'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor of approving 1299 on first reading, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 4-0. All right. Now, resolution 2017-12. It's a resolution approving a lease agreement with Regions Equipment Finance Corp. Jacob?
Yes, Mr. President, we discussed this resolution at the last meeting, but had a couple of minor technical changes to make to it. This is to approve financing for police and fire vehicles. The vehicles that are outstanding that they're using have exceeded the useful life fairly significantly beyond the amounts that we typically run these vehicles. Obviously, it's important that when a first responder is working, that their vehicle starts when it's supposed to start and runs when it's supposed to run. So we're asking for approval. The interest rate on this, Monty worked really hard and really twisted arms and got it down to 1.85%, a really fantastic rate. So we would ask for approval on this.
Need a motion?
Mr. President, I move that we approve Resolution 2017-12.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve Resolution 2017-12. Any questions or comments of Jacob or Monty regarding this?
A comment. The last time we did this, we bonded for the cars. I think it's important to know that we are not doing that this time, which we asked last time when we bonded that we not do it again. And this is coming from our budget, correct? There's no bonding, no, okay. And I think that's important, that's a big step. And this is a lease to own. We'll own the cars at the end of the 3-year period.
That's right. It's a 3-year fully amortizing loan lease period.
That's very good work on Monty's part, and I know, Chief, you've been working on it, and Chuck, you've been working on it as well, so, and Fire Department as well. This is for them too, so it's important to know.
Any other questions or comments? I would echo those, and I'm not sure if you said this, but there are some vehicles that, as you said, are past their useful life, and we'll have an opportunity to auction those or rid of those and use those dollars to pay back into this as well. That's good. That's something we've done in the past, but I think the way we're going to do it this time in terms of the funds that we'll receive sooner would be used sooner, so that's great. Any comments or questions from the public on this? This is a financial item. We like to get comment from the public when it is. Okay. All those in favor of approving 2017-12 for the lease agreement with Regions Equipment Finance Corp., say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This carries 4-0. Moving on to item 13, approval of agreement with Kaiser Consulting, Keyser Consulting,
You pronounce it Keyser Consulting, yes, sir.
2018 ADA curb ramps and resurface projects.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So for the avoidance of doubt, this doesn't encompass a couple of agreements with Keyser Consulting. One is for mill and resurface planning, which we're getting set up for 2018 now for that construction season. So that's for engineering work there. The other agreement is specific to improvements in what we typically refer to as Cord Street, which is the curb cut-in on Crawfordsville Road that fits in between the dirt stripper, car wash, and then Pam's Pit Stop Liquor there. The purpose of this is to design, engineer improvements up to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway's property. Long-term goal has been for a long time to create an access road for the American Legion. This is a positive step forward in getting to that goal, and we would ask for your consideration and approval.
Great. Have a motion, please?
Mr. President, I move that we approve the agreement with Keyser Consulting for 2018 for curb ramps and resurfacing projects.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the agreement with Keyser. Additional comments or questions from the audience or from the council?
I feel like I'm the only one talking tonight. I think this is a first step to work with the Legion. I know we've been talking to them Jeff and I have been talking to them for 2 years prior to this. Gary, you've met with them. They're an important part of town, and we want them to stay in town and work with them, and we've tried to work with them, and we're still in talks with them, and I think this is a major starting point to get them some access that they need. Fully support this 110%.
Fully agree. Appreciate the Legion and the members, especially those that serve. And if we can get the road built to them, that will enhance their business, nonprofit as it is, and make them more successful than they already are. That'd be great. So, any questions or comments from the audience on this? Okay, I call for the vote. All those in favor of approving the agreement with Keyser as described, say aye.
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 Opposed? That carried as well, 4-0.
Thank you.
Next, item 14, approval agreement with American Structure Point for right-of-way engineering services.
Yes, Mr. President, this is for engineering services for right-of-way that we intend to use in the Georgetown Road area. This represents the early stages of attention and redevelopment in the area. We need to identify the land in the area, the different plots of land, as well as our utility right-of-way. This is, I know this has been talked about for a while and improving the Georgetown Road area there. This, like I said, is the early steps. Don't expect dirt moving in a linear park or some of the other things that have been discussed to happen overnight, but this certainly does represent a good initial tangible step to moving forward in our commitment in that area.
Need a motion, please?
Mr. President, I move that we approve the agreement between American Structure Point for the right-of-way and engineering services on Georgetown.
Second.
So we have a motion to approve an agreement with American Structure Point. Any comments or questions? My comments would be pretty simple. This is a great opportunity for us to do some of the things that we've wanted to for a long time. It starts with the engineering work here, but it's good to have, as we talked with the budget earlier, it's good to have monies to be able to do it. We've not necessarily had those the past couple of years, so we've been frugal in our spending the last couple of years, and I'm glad that we have the opportunity to do it. So, any comments or questions from the audience on this agreement? Okay, call for the vote. All those in favor of approving the agreement with American Structure Point as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries as well. All right, moving on to item 15, report from the department supervisors. Start with economic development, Tim Gropp.
Good evening, council. A few updates from the economic development, redevelopment side of the town. Last week, we had a special meeting of the SRC to approve a few contracts. We're getting closer to the closing date with the Wilshaw project. We're still shooting to close with the developer the week of the 23rd. So we're still working out a bunch of details for additional parking, for making sure that all downtown business owners know where to put their employees and to try and free up as much parking as possible. I think some of the good news is we did have a meeting with the parking committee to update them on those efforts. It looks like we'll be able to try and keep that lot open into mid-November if possible, which would be really beneficial as we tie up some of these loose ends. One of the contracts we did approve was the demo of the building at 1346 Main Street. It's a former gas station on the corner. We had some inquiries on it, but after evaluating the building, and we hadn't really had anybody that would update that building to a point of that would need to put the investment into it to make it usable. So in the long term, or in the short term, I apologize, I want to emphasize this is temporary. We'll demo that building and make it into parking for customers in that area just to the south of 1400 block. So that'll add, there'll be a total of about 14 spots on that parcel. So there's a longer term vision to do some redevelopment in that area, but this is just a step to get us through. We're really focused on the next approximately about a year while the apartments and the parking lot are getting built in the Wilshaw project. So trying to make up 50, 60 spots if possible. I think we're making some progress on that. So I want you to be aware of that we approved both the demo and the paving contract for that building. We also approved a contract to remove the dirt at the Gilman Street parcel. So we were able to work with the park, or with not with the parks, I apologize, the trails on the P&E trail to move some of that dirt along there to smooth that out. So hopefully if we can get that moving fast enough,
They might even be able to pave the second leg of that this year. They do have the money ready for that. It'll just kind of depend on weather and timing. But we were going to move the dirt anyways to make that parcel ready for development. So we were able to partner with them and make that work out. So they're actually split up the bid, so they're going to take all the concrete and junk to the landfill, and the good dirt will be used along the P&E trail, and anything left over we'll add to the pile down at the wastewater treatment plant. So that's moving forward. And just a quick update, Get-Go's getting closer to opening. They're shooting for the end of this month. We don't have an exact date yet, but we will let everybody know as soon as that is ready to open. And you should be seeing some vertical building on the Marriott, the Courtyard Marriott as well in the next week or so. So they had some problems with footers. They've gotten past those, so you should be seeing the stairwells and the elevator shafts going up this week, hopefully. So, any questions?
Tim, can you give us an update? There's some activity, it seems like, just on the other side of Burger King. I know some people had some questions.
Oh, yeah. So they're, as they're evaluating, they're looking to sell those last 2 lots in that development. They're putting another strip center similar to the one with Chipotle. It'll actually be turned sideways, though, to fit into that lot. But it'll have 3 or 4 tenants in it. They haven't announced any of those yet, but they have started construction, and hopefully it'll have the footers in ground to be working over the winter, and that should be open in the spring. So I know they had one tenant signed, and they were working on finalizing 1 or 2 others. So there's still some space available, and I believe on their website you can see what the space is. But that construction did start rather rapidly, so we're excited about that. And I know there are negotiations with a couple other users for the last parcel as well. So that development will hopefully be all signed and under construction early next year.
Give an update to also, Tim, for the shopping center around TJ Maxx and all that. Is that going to be fenced off during most of the year? What's the status?
Yeah, so we actually, the good work, it was brought to our attention that there wasn't a good walkway through there, that they had blocked it off. So the town was able to get them to move that fence back to allow them to not have to walk in the road, but be able to go around it. That fence will be up during construction. They needed some room to move the dirt around. There's a big dirt pile right now. They were excavating, getting the footprint for the new buildings a little bigger than the older buildings, so they're doing that dirt work now. If you go by there currently, the TJ Maxx facade is actually moving right along. They had a goal. They need to get that done by mid-October here. TJ Maxx has some executives coming into town. They wanted the building to be ready for them. So that's moving right along. They've got it painted and ready to go, and the rest will just be under construction, but that'll be fenced off the entire time. If any adjustments or anything needed, just let us know, and we'd be happy to work with Brixmar on those. They've been easy to work with.
Tim, thanks for your work. I know you're still relatively new on the job, but clearly you've come to grips with a lot of things that are going on, and appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Next up is Jim Campbell, Police Chief.
Good evening. First of all, I want to thank you for the lease agreement. That is appreciated. Last week, we had our National Night Out, and I just want to thank those who came out and enjoyed the evening. It was an opportunity for people to come out and visit with the police, and, we had a few hot dogs left over, so I think everybody went away happy. Can't say enough for the officers and, like I said, the people that came out and interacted. The air race. This weekend, we have an air race over at IMS. If you haven't been there, it's pretty interesting. For us, it's another security detail. So far, all's well. Kalia, last week, we finished up what's called a mock. Kalia is a 3-year project, and for that 3 years, we get assessed in December, as to passing, the standards that are set. Sarah Eady and Jim Teely did an excellent job of putting that together. It was reviewed by people, Carmel, Plainfield, who are also CLIA certified, but they gave us very high marks on those mocks, and what that should mean is, come December, we should be ready for our assessors. So, the last one is, as always, we push shred it, but shred it will be October 21st, 10 to 1. You know, it's an opportunity to bring out paperwork that you want to see get destroyed, computers, and, the prescription drugs. That's Norm's usual favorite subject to discuss, but there you go. It is an opportunity for people to bring those things out. You know, it does help in, avoiding a lot of the identity theft and issues that we see pretty common today. That's what I got.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Next up, Fire Chief Bob Fishburne.
Good evening. Got a few things here. All of our guys completed their fireground survival training last week, which was 3 shifts with a trailer that was provided to us through the International Association of Firefighters. It's a new program. We had 2 guys trained through our local. And Jacob, I think you saw that trailer sitting out at Fire Ops 101. You guys got to do the bigger version of that, but it's a great program. We had 2 of our younger guys go through that train the trainer, and we put all of our guys through it at Station 2 last week. I had the opportunity to go through it on Friday, and really, really neat program, so they've all been through that. I also wanted to I guess I want to just say thanks to all those who were a part of the incident last Thursday. Of course, that incident came in right in the midst of our department head meeting, which is interesting, because Wendell was immediately up and in the hallway, and my assistant chief, Mike Lynch, was in the hallway. And as soon as that meeting was over, Jacob got in the vehicle with Mike, got to go down to the incident. But it's something that the public doesn't get to see very often, and that is the teamwork that goes into a spill like that. I'm sure that our citizens noticed when 10th Street is shut down for a couple hours east to west during rush hour, everyone on the west side notices. And, Captain Deerdorf and Public Works, Wendell Walters, my assistant chief, Mike Lynch, they set up a command post. Wayne Township obviously was a part of that. But you don't think about the other people, I came back to the office and was on the phone with Jim Zor, put him in touch so that he could get some of the materials. But I also kind of wanted to remind the public that on an incident like that, that's not all just free. I know that Wendell, I know that Chief Lynch, I'm sure that Chief Campbell, we've all had to compile what some of those costs were, and the town's going to get some of that money back, and that's just a part of that process. Wayne Township had the right forms; they'll do their own reimbursement, but
Excuse
it's
me,
a
Chief,
really big event.
You're talking about through insurance claims?
Through the trucking company's insurance and coverage, and of course they have their own spill recovery team, but they're 40 minutes out, so we started that process. It was just neat to see, Norm left that meeting and immediately went down to prepare for whatever runoff there might be. Our guys were putting what we call diapers and dikes around all the inlets to the water, and it's just an incident with a lot of different tentacles, and it's neat to see the Speedway team do such a good job to protect, the sewer runoff and the people passing through and coming back and forth. And I just want to thank all the agencies and all of our departments here. So,
Thanks for sharing that. Could you back up just a little bit and actually talk about what caused how the spill happened from where to where? Because not everybody necessarily heard.
Well, the tanker actually traveled in from 74 and 465 and hadn't had any spill, and there was a cap that came off right at about Speedway Woods all the way to Holt Road. Was putting product. I'm not sure, was it oil?
Actually, it was 465, the ramp started there.
Yeah, but we researched from 465 on. We didn't see it. It had kind of started, but then it really started letting go at Speedway Woods. What was it, Mike?
Just oil.
Just an oil that had to be refined. So it was just neat to see that whole team, come together and do that. So. Also, want to reiterate what Chief Campbell said and thank Monty for the work he's done. I don't think people realize, we buy these vehicles on bonds, and sometimes we're starting to get rid of the vehicles before the bond's ever paid off. That's just not good finance. And the way that he has started to incorporate into the street department vehicles, the police and fire vehicles, where the town actually going to own them, have them paid for, and not have a bond that's hanging out there. And I'd really like to know how he gets that 1.9%, and I'd like to have that for a few things that I want to buy.
1.8.
Or 1.8, I'm sorry. And then lastly, I just want to remind everyone that October is Fire Prevention Month. Our battalion chief, Jeff Hartman, who oversees our pub ed now, we've already been in preschools. We're just getting in all of the elementary schools, and we'll be doing that over the entire month of October, taking the safety trailer to some places and things like that. So,
Chief,
other than that.
I have one question. Since you didn't bring it up, I'm kind of concerned he didn't pass. But didn't Jacob go out with you for a day?
Oh, yeah, we would hire Jacob as a firefighter in a
Okay.
heartbeat.
Okay.
He might have to take a little bit of a pay cut, but. You asked. No, Jacob did an excellent job. He was actually in the group with Chief Roach from IMPD, and our representative, Mike Levisic, took those guys through, and I think he lost about 5 to 7 pounds of water. It was 90 degrees that day, and we keep him hydrated and all that stuff safe, but it's just an incredible program. I think he was really pumped about it.
For the public, that's the thousands watching at home, can you kind of relate what he went through, what it's called, and experiences he had?
Yeah, so every other year, they try to put some of the, public leaders, civic leaders. We had a librarian from Lawrence that went through it this year, and just to experience what firefighters do. So there is an EMS part where they get to ride in an ambulance, actually work on, and go through CPR and work on some of the dummies and do the bag valve mask and see how that goes. That's one of the rotations. They get to do ladder ops, so get to climb the 100-foot aerial platform.
Wow.
They're harnessed off and all of that. Jacob went up, no problem, no fear of heights. They also had 4 different vehicles, one for each group. So they got to use the hydraulic equipment to cut out windows, extract a patient from a car, cut doors off, pop them. And then his actual last rotation was a live fire evolution in the city of Lawrence's tower, where, temperatures are very, very high, and he's kind of a tall guy. So when he came out, his helmet was too hot to touch. Obviously everything's safe. They have very, very highly trained people with them, but he was ready to get out of that gear and get some Gatorade, I can tell you. So, but yes, we would take him in a heartbeat.
Well, thanks for bringing him back safe to us.
All right.
We're going to keep him where he is.
All right. And here in a couple years, we'll put that invitation out again, and maybe we can get a few of you guys.
Yeah, I was going to say, Counselor Lindsay, you're asking all these questions
Yeah.
about it. I guess they can plan on sending you out there next year, and you can just
There-
experience it on
That's
your.
why I didn't ask.
There's a reason why I chose the profession I'm in right now. And Chief knows what I mean.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chief.
Chief.
Thank you. Street Department and
There you go.
Department of Public Works Director, and we'll talk about that, Wendell Walters.
Good evening, counselors. Just some updates. Just want to thank our crews, our staffing for the Thursday evening spill. It was a big incident. We started at 2:30. We ended up getting everything open at 9 o'clock that evening. Then myself and Rob from the street department moved to Mary's location where we had a fire hydrant that got put out of service. So a busy evening. The crews were back Friday doing cleanup and watering and continue the work on that spill out there. So it was a long couple of days, but the crews, these guys, supervisors, everybody pitched in. We had detectives blocking streets. We had chiefs out. Everybody was out helping, so big hand to all of us. A couple of good things. We did receive our grant from NDOT from the state for $172,234.81. That was a 50-50 match. Gary and Jacob joined us with the governor to receive our big check, so I'm going to get the big check to Monty for deposit. I can't get it to go in the ATM machine, so I'll But that was a good program. Thank you guys for your support and letters of recommendation, and was successful. This is going to be a 5-year program. This is 2 years into it, so we are going to apply again. We'll start working on that again shortly. 16th Lyndhurst project, just a quick update on it. We're running behind because of utilities. So we had a coordination meeting last week. So we set a schedule. Hopefully this is going to work. We're going to start at 3 a.m. on the 24th. The line company, the signal company, will be taking things down for the other companies to move over. So we're going to have 5 different crews working in this area. So keep our fingers crossed. By 3:30 that afternoon, we will have everything moved, put back together, and lights working. During this time, we will have traffic control, police officers out moving traffic through. So 3:30, maybe 3:35, we'll have everything back up. And then the construction will start on the concrete, the storm drains, and different things like that. But this has been a holdup for a couple weeks, so we called a meeting and got it organized, and we're going to get it done.
What's the completion date you're looking at for that, Wendell?
They had November 1st.
Probably
So
gonna be
we're
past that a little bit.
probably November 17th, for everything, if we can keep everything moving. And next Tuesday is a critical day. If we can get everything moved over, then we can move in the heavy equipment and start tearing out and putting back, so we'll get there. And on the street department side, the crews are out doing all their fall maintenance, patching, cleaning up, running sweepers, cleaning sewers, so that's all in operation. And these guys are out on the street, so be careful, watch out for them, and give them the room they need. That catches us up real quick.
Wendell, do you want to talk about the Hawk system update really quick on High
Oh,
School
the
Road?
Hawk system, yes, that at the high school in Hickorywood is delayed. The poll order did not come in, so they are hoping that it will be in the next week. Completion installed by end of this month. Once again, a vendor has held us up getting the equipment up and running because we should have been running today. So as soon as that pole comes in, that arm, we'll get it installed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wastewater Department, Mary Armacross.
We are currently on groundwater. We are having a few issues with the surface water plant. Our flight system, which collects the sludge, the solids that we remove from the creek water, it is broken. It's the rails on the bottom that the flights actually ride on. So we've had to have some parts manufactured to replace it. So it's going to be about 2 to 3 weeks before it can get back online. While it's down, we're doing some maintenance that needs to be done on it. The other issue, as Steve has told you, the DNR, when they inspected the Lowhead Dam, they noticed some damage. We got the structural engineers out there, and the actual dam is in really good shape, but where the problem is, the creek is starting to make a way around the dam, so it's still early stages, but what we're thinking we're going to do is a concrete apron, similar to what we put around our intake to protect that. And then with the spill on 10th Street, while it was in our well field, it was, I know to them it wasn't small quantities, but to us it was coming out in small quantities where it stayed on the road, it didn't get into the grass, and it should not impact, I do not foresee it impacting in any way, shape, or form our aquifer. And that's all we've got. Any questions?
Just a little bit of color on the dam. The reason that's important is and why failing is a problem is our surface water plant needs kind of a deep point to suck the water out, and if we start losing that dam, that water level starts decreasing. So that's why it's critical to keep an eye on that.
Great. When do we normally go on groundwater for the winter?
Typically, it's November.
Okay, so you may
Yeah,
end
might-
up staying there if we don't get those
Yeah,
back
it
up.
depends on the temperature, so we'll see.
Great.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Norm Berry, Stormwater Department, please.
I'm glad to report on wastewater. Operational-wise, everything is running pretty well. We do have a structural issue. The original plant was built in 1954, and we're still using some of the elevated concrete tanks from that original plant. We have developed a severe structural issue on one of those tanks. One of the corners has deteriorated to the point where it's leaking. And we have repaired cracks over the years, but those were surface cracks. These cracks now have gone all the way through the wall. So it's a major concern, and currently we are having some contractors come out and evaluate the situation and give us some options on how to address the issue. And once we can determine an option, our best option to repair that, then we'll get some quotes. The danger here is that over the years, as you have the winter freeze and thaw, these cracks that have developed over the years just expand and increase. So I can totally relate to the issues that we're having. The plant was built the same year I was born, and I'm not holding up as well as I used to either. So I always know how old the plant is.
Sorry, Norm, so which tank or tanks are you talking about?
These would be what we call our primary clarifier tanks. And if you go online, you can see a plant description on our website, and it'll talk about the primary clarifiers. These would be the south tanks. And they have about 8 to 10 feet of wall that extends above the ground level. So we're going to continue to have these issues. I don't think that it would be in our interest or cost effective to try to spend the money to rehabilitate the tanks until we see an issue arise, because we're really not going to know sometimes how serious the situation is. Now, this isn't in any danger of completely blowing out in the next year. So we've got time. And it is leaking just a little bit, actually dripping. So, like I said, once we can determine, some of the options have been to drill out the cracks and epoxy them. Some has been knock the whole thing out, build another wall. Build a wall. That was a joke. Or build a apron around it, build another wall around to encase it. So there's different options that we're looking at, and we'll just choose which is the most effective and cost effective.
Okay. So how old's the tank?
63 years old.
Wow, that's old.
Pretty darn old.
That was a joke, just.
I know, I caught that. It was a good one, too.
Yeah.
That's all I had.
Norm, thanks for what you do.
Thanks, Norm.
Thank you.
A new member of our team, Tammy Smith, Parks and Recreation. Welcome.
Hello, thank you. I'm excited to be here. I guess I don't formally have a report since I am new. I just completed my first week. I basically was on a fun field trip through my office, going through binders and files and trying to get a feel for what my job is going to be. And I'm very excited to get out and meet people and see what I can do for the parks programming, how we can maybe strengthen things, communicate better. I'm very excited for this opportunity.
Great. Tammy, thanks for sharing that. Can you talk a little more about yourself personally, where you've been?
Sure.
Kind of what you've done?
Yes, I've lived in Speedway for over 23 years. We purchased our home from my husband's grandparents. Both of his parents are Speedway graduates. So love Speedway. I'm advocate of everything Speedway, and I'm involved in a lot, especially at the schools. I have 2 boys, a junior and a senior, and so I'm involved in a lot of the volunteering and aspects of different groups and sports at the high school. I have volunteered since they were in elementary school at Newbie Elementary on the SPT there, so I think I'm a fairly familiar face around town, and I'm excited to be a part of this team. So, anything else?
Tammy, I know for one, I'm excited that you're on board with this. I, for one, can tell you how organized she is. My daughter is a swimmer, and Tammy is a swim mom, and she organized absolutely everything, from rides to snacks to you name it. So she was very thorough, always sent out emails to all of us parents, so great to have you on board. And
Thank you. Yes, I do run all the home swim meets at the high school for the junior high and high school. It's my favorite time of the school year, favorite sport.
That's great.
Yep.
That's great.
Great.
Well, thanks again. We're glad to have you aboard and look forward to the months and years ahead.
Great, thank you.
That concludes our Department Supervisor reports, and we're going to move on to item 16 on the agenda, which is the approval of claims and utility adjustments and a general report from our clerk treasurer. Monty?
Thank you. I would ask the council if you could approve tonight the claims that put before you, making up from September the 23rd to October the 6th. All those wonderful bills that the department heads who are here keep bringing to me wanting to be paid, so. Right, Norm? Right.
Mr. President, I make a motion we approve the claims as presented by our clerk treasurer.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the claims. Any comments or questions from the council?
Monty, I have a question for you. On page 4, there's a pole for a light. Is that the one that was on Crawfordsville Road?
Yes.
That was replaced?
Yes,
So did we not get coverage or
we did.
from insurance?
The insurance from the person who
Okay.
knocked it down that was
Okay.
taken care of from them.
Any other questions? Any from the audience? Okay. All those in favor of approving the claims as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? These carry. 4-0.
For the same time, from September 23rd to October the 6th, you have the adjustments from the utilities. I like that it's a real short list that's easy to review, so I appreciate your approval.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the utility adjustments as presented.
Second?
Motion to approve the utility adjustments. Any comments or questions? Any from the audience? Monty, I'll just say that meeting after meeting, it seems like this is a one-pager, and there was a day where that was not, there were more pages than these claims held. And thank you for the work you've done to get that under control. It's clearly under very good control. So
And
thank
good
you.
staff, and especially on the utilities, Sarah Adams is doing a fabulous job running that part of what we do.
That's great. Thank you.
Real comfortable with the staff.
Thanks. All those in favor of approving the brief utility adjustments, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Let's carry 4-0. Anything else to report, Monty?
No, sir.
And now, moving on to our town manager. Unless you, actually, I should ask our council if they have anything they'd like to report or say this evening.
Nothing. Nothing of import. I just wanted to thank you for inviting me, and I've had some very good meetings with Tim and Jacob and Wendell, and getting to know my way around and introduced to some of the various department heads, and very much look forward to working with you all.
Great. Thank you. Jacob?
Great. How did I get to be item number 17?
Well, you're actually, I mean, we added 3.5, or we just move them all down the number, whichever you.
Getting up there tonight. So I'll be as brief as possible. Want to say we have gone through the process of applying for Aging in Place grant through the state. I'm very happy to report that we received the full amount that we requested. There's a little bit of paperwork, as there always seems to be with stuff like this, to resolve, but we hope to be starting those projects here soon. Again, that's to help folks who need some assistance modifying the home, getting updates. The first part of the project is to make sure that the house is safe and acceptable for the occupant. So there's a lot of that, but major props to the CDC, and they're working on that. And I'll also give credit where it's due to the previous town manager. Ian did a lot of work starting to get us on that path. We had to do a housing plan and a lot of other stuff. So this has been in the works for a while, and great credit to him and the Community Development Corporation Board. And Michelle Leidy, she was a very strong proponent of this. It was great having her support on this.
Jacob, just in general, first of all, thank you for that piece, because I know you worked hard as well. But in housing and in that area, any general comments you'd make? I know it's near and dear to your heart. You served in CDC and you worked closely with the housing group before you became town manager.
Yeah, I mean, so I joined the Housing Advisory Council, which is kind of the advisor to the CDC, and man, I think it was 2013, and housing in Speedway was very, very different at that time. We were really, really struggling. Houses were going for sale at less than $20,000, and it was a tough time for the economy overall. But man, it's just been a huge change, and I think the economy improving helped out a lot. I think the town being in a good position from a redevelopment perspective in general helped that out quite a bit. I hear from a lot of people that they want to buy a house in Speedway, and they struggle to find one. I'm like, I'm just a town manager. I can't help you find a realtor. But it's just been a huge transformation, and I think there are also some macro changes at play as far as the type of housing that Speedway offers is something that a lot of different generations want now, as far as houses that are not huge with not a huge yard, but something that's manageable, something it's been a big change. It's been really cool to see how we've come along.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your report. It just seemed to fit in with what you were already talking about.
Sure, yeah. Also getting money, as Wendell mentioned, we received the Community Crossings grant from NDOT, and Wendell always tries to be modest, but he does a great job with the program, and it was really competitive this year. I think this was the second year doing it. The first year, people are always a little slow to get involved and to see what's going on, but then when the money really came and helped out a lot of communities, a lot of people jumped in, and I know Wendell was nervous about, are we going to get, anything? I don't think he expected to get the full amount that we requested, but it's great to get the money, but it's also a testament to the work that he's doing and the street department's doing. It says, hey, you guys are doing good projects. These are having an impact in your communities, and here's some matching funds to continue doing that. So can't give Wendell and Rob and the team there enough credit for that. We'll also add that for the sewer expansion project, the income surveys have gone out. I realize that this announcement impacts only kind of a small portion of the community, but if you do live in that area, would ask that you complete the survey. If we're successful, and by successful I mean that we qualify for applying for the grant, then we'll be applying in April is when that next cycle comes around. So that's just an idea of timeline. And then I don't know if anybody heard, but there was an oil spill last week. I'll also just add how impressive it was to see everything go in action quickly. And it was, as Chief Fishburne mentioned, it happened to happen right as we were having the leadership meeting. So literally we all Wendell kind of got the call, and then some more people, and then the next thing you know, everyone's going. So I just hopped in a truck. I figured it was going to the right place. But Chief Mike Lynch got me there. And it was just cool to see. It impacted just about everybody in the town. And as Mary mentioned, she's out there wondering, what is this going to affect the wells? Norm, obviously it's police and fire, and they did a great job responding, but of course it's the street department, guys bringing in additional barricades. It just, immediately, everybody knew exactly what they had to do. And this is a weird thing to have oil spill down, an entire street through town. But everyone was on their toes and ready to react, and it was really, really neat to see. So just want to compliment the group for their efforts on that. And then last but not least, I want to thank all the Speedway Home Helper volunteers. We had great weather, great volunteers, very grateful people who had help. I will say that the project I was working on at the end, the person kind of correctly identified that I was the town manager, and she thought it was great, and it wasn't any less grateful, but immediately then wanted to know when her road was going to get repaved in front of her house. And of course, I told her what I tell everybody, which is those decisions are made by Councilor Gary Rakes, and so you'll need to go to him about that.
I'm one of five.
And that's my report. Thank you.
I'm one of five.
Just for the record, I second that.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll be stepping down.
He gets to talk last. We gotta be
That's
careful.
right, that's right. Yeah, well, thanks for your report on that. Let's see, I'll hold off and get you back later, or get ahead later.
No doubt.
Report from counselors, Counselor Fisher.
Yeah, I just want to definitely say thanks to Monty and Jacob for the work done on our budget, as well as our department heads, because they've made our job much easier up here. And I also don't want to forget the boards, for Public Library and our school board as well, and all the work that they do for our town. And then it's just sort of nice to hear the stories of how our people jump in quick on a quick action. I feel very lucky that we live in a town like this, because not every town has that, for people just to jump into action and take care of something so quickly. So thank you to all you guys and your crews. So appreciate that.
Well said.
Counselor Lindsay.
I have nothing further to say this evening, Mr. President.
Promise?
That's a promise.
Okay. Vice President Jeff Matthews.
Piggybacking off of what Jacob had mentioned, the Speedway Home Helpers, I think we had 30-some volunteers. Luckily, I picked Saturday, which was a beautiful day to go out and paint and mend fences, like literally mend fences. Great support from the community, and thank you. That's all I've got.
Great. And finally, I'll report, wanted to, both chiefs were a big part of National Night Out. We don't take that event for granted. We do it in October because we're busy with racing and other events. The time a lot of the rest of the country does it, but other parts of the country do it different nights as well. But the weather was perfect. That's even better reason to do it in the fall versus the hot months of the summer. But it was great to see. And I heard Eileen use the word team, and this evening I wasn't keeping track, but we probably heard the word team a dozen times. And I saw a team of people put on a terrific event that night, and a couple days later, as Jacob and others, chiefs included, all of our team came forward and took care of the spill. And it just, that's what's great. I know Jacob was teasing earlier when he talked about me having a vote in that item. This is a team, and it's just one more team within the town, but it's truly great. And that word great gets used a lot, I think overused today, but I love our team, and I think it is great in this town. 120-some employees and then some, if you look at all the volunteers we have serving on boards and commissions and in other ways, and it's great to be a part of that team. So just a quick reminder, I see it a lot because I live across the street from a park where the leaves blow. Clean your gutters of the leaves, clean the sewer mains of the leaves. It would really help out when we do start getting some rains in the fall. And just remind everyone, as Chief said, shred it on October 23rd. And that's an important event because it raises a few dollars, but it also gets rid of 21st. All right, I wrote it down wrong, Chief. Thank you. So it's October 21st. And with that, it's 8:10. Unless there's something else, we'll call this meeting adjourned.